We're coming, and we ain't backing down.
We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror.
Everybody just do your job. You understand that?
Hey, will you shut up?
I'm bitterly disappointed with the officiating today.
Guys being dudes.
And they run through our like through a tin horn, man.
Thank you, Lee. Alex, before we get to the spring surprise of the college football coaching cycle calendar, we do have some intra-company March Madness to deal with this week.
Yeah, we're recording this on Wednesday, March 26th, a little bit before lunchtime. On Thursday, my Maryland Terrapins, the 4 seed, face your Florida Gators, the 1 seed, in the Sweet 16 of the men's NCAA tournament. You and I have agreed on a little bet, which I'm pretty excited about. Should I tell the people about it?
Please do.
So we've agreed that if Florida beats Maryland, I will ask home field for some Florida stuff and do the Gator Chomp on one episode of Split Zone Duo. Whereas if Maryland wins, I get all of Richard's money from the partnership in Split Zone Duo for the next month. And I think that's a fair, equitable situation because Maryland's the underdog. So I have to be getting a bit of a risk premium in this negotiation.
Fair is fair. That's how in a business you work with a partner the right way, the correct way.
Yeah, actually kind of an interesting situation at Maryland right now where the basketball coach, Kevin Willard, is in one of the more shamelessly open ways ever, not only flirting with another job, that being Villanova during the tournament, but sort of in a pre-house settlement turf war with the rest of the athletic department. The thought from the Maryland media is that Willard kind of moved the athletic director out of the paint. He's at SMU now. And that Willard has been advocating for basketball to get more of the house settlement money at Maryland. And Mike Loxley gave a not very amused quote when someone asked him about Willard talking about this the other day. I love a little football basketball turf war. You know that. We've done an episode on Adolph Rupp and Bear Bryant at Kentucky back in the day. This happened at Kentucky again a few years ago. I think it's going to happen at a lot of schools going forward.
Yes, it's going to happen. So what's going to happen is football and basketball, but also intra basketballs for schools that want to be good at both men's and women's. There is going to be a turf war struggle in there for the basketball share of the $21.5-ish million of house settlement NIL payments.
Gonna be interesting because there's only so much rev share dollars to go around and a lot of mouths to feed in these athletic departments. But Richard, let's talk about that spring surprise. Stanford fires Troy Taylor, had a very unsuccessful pair of seasons there, couple 3-9s, but that is not why he was fired. I will go through the timeline really quickly here. So the short reason that Troy Taylor is fired seems to be unprofessional behavior towards women in the office around Stanford football.
I don't know if that's the short reason, but please continue.
I'll continue. Maybe image management around that might be a better way to put it, but I'll keep going. So there is an investigation into plural. I'll get to the second one. There are investigations, but there's a first one into Troy Taylor that wraps up in about February of 2024. This is according to a report about a week ago now by ESPN that spilled all of this into public view. And to end that report, and we don't have a ton of details on this beyond broad level stuff about Troy Taylor being accused of not being professional, kind towards women in the office. He, at the end of this report in February of 2024, signs a warning letter. It's more than a year ago, obviously. Then there's a second investigation with additional claims coming to light. That one wraps in July of last year, but the school doesn't fire him. They continue to suck at football in 2024. They appoint Andrew Luck as the general manager, but not just a regular general manager, but sort of the football boss of Stanford, who is directly over the head coach. A couple of weeks ago, Bernard Muir, the longtime athletic director at Stanford, resigns. Nothing that officially connects that to this, but worth noting. This ESPN report then comes out, so we finally know about all of this stuff, about the investigations into Taylor. Then Stanford, and this is where it gets messy, lets him hang around for 6 more days and gives the following statement. Taylor does to ESPN. It says, quote, "I willingly complied with the investigations, accepted the recommendations that came out of them, and used them as a learning opportunity to grow in leadership and how I interact with others. I look forward to continuing to work collaboratively and collegially with my colleagues so that we can achieve success for our football program together." That was about a week ago. March 25th, he's fired. Richard, this was not how Stanford thought this was going to go.
Yeah, okay, couple things. So when the second investigation wrapped at the end of the summer, last summer, late July, it was not a guarded secret that in the building that Troy Taylor was under investigation of some sort for conduct. Bernard Muir met with the football staff, and I'm not sure players, but I do know at least staff, and sort of told them that there was a investigation into Troy Taylor and that it had wrapped up and had been resolved. So at least the staff was aware that something had gone on there and that it was done. The Athletic reported that Troy Taylor was docked pay and had to go to basically like a workplace training seminar or a series of such seminars. So it's my understanding that Stanford said, okay, we disciplined him. And so that there had been some sort of discipline that had been metered out. So then Andrew Luck takes the job at the end of November. I think it was literally November 30th, but anyway, late November, and is the general manager. And then on Thursday, which is when the ESPN report came out, it's my understanding that Andrew Luck met with at least the players and kind of like publicly stood behind Troy Taylor. Now, whether he did that just because, he didn't want all of them to go in the portal, I don't know, or he didn't want to fire Troy Taylor on the spot, I don't know. But Troy Taylor was at least tacitly stood behind at a team meeting on Thursday after the ESPN report came out. Then everybody goes on spring break. Everybody's on spring break right now between quarters at Stanford, to the point where when Troy Taylor gets fired Tuesday morning, I talked to a Stanford staffer who was like, yeah, dude, I got like a text about it like 10 minutes before the release came out. I'm not even in the building. And I was like, what do you mean you're not in the building? He was like, oh, dude, I'm on spring break with my wife. I was like, what are you talking about? So nobody's really in the building right now. So my question, Alex, is what changed in the last 4-ish days that got Andrew Luck to at least in name put his name to this decision? I have a guess that some people in high places at Stanford said, whoa, this is ridiculous. This is absurd. We can't run it back with this guy. We've got to fire him because of his conduct towards women in the building and a compliance officer who was trying to get Stanford for some sort of, I think, minor rules violation, NCAA rules violations. I think there's a pretty key passage, Alex, in the release that Andrew Luck put out. And it reads, and I quote, after continued consideration, it is evident to me that our program needs a reset. In consultation with university leadership, I no longer believe that Coach Taylor is the right coach to lead our football program.
Yeah, one thing that's not said in that release or anywhere by Stanford yet is whether they fired him for cause. And I'm guessing we're never going to find out because it's Stanford, both pretty opaque place and private institution. But it doesn't sound like it, right? And it would be hard to do that if there's one thing that we know from previous situations like this, where coaches have been investigated for one thing or another and then not fired, but then fired after a public uproar. It can be hard to get cause in those situations.
Yeah, it's pretty much the Northwestern situation.
Impossible.
Yeah, it's pretty much the Northwestern situation.
It has strong echoes of the Pat Fitzgerald case a year ago at Northwestern.
And especially if you metered out the discipline, like you could quibble with the fact that they metered out the discipline at the end of last summer and didn't fire him. Like I'm not going to argue that, but if he accepted discipline at the time, and then 8 months later, you go to try to fire him because ESPN reported it. That's not how it works. Like that is absolutely not how it works as far as being able to fire him and not pay him a lot of money.
No, but schools have tried. I mean, Northwestern, to close the loop on Fitzgerald, is trying. Like Northwestern's view is we fired Pat Fitzgerald for cause. Pat Fitzgerald then sued Northwestern for 9 figures, and I don't believe that's been resolved to this point. I think Stanford prefers mess, and I'm also quite confident that Troy Taylor's contract had less on it than Pat Fitzgerald did at the time of that firing.
Yeah, dude, Pat Fitzgerald making money.
Yeah, Pat Fitzgerald was making money, not just a Big Ten job, but a job where he was very mobbed up and had a lot of shooters. So it would be interesting if this got messy, but I'm sure that Stanford's desire is for it not to. And frankly, it seems like it would be hard because
I wouldn't put it past them. I would not put it past them because it doesn't sound like Stanford's in great shakes as an athletic department. A lot of turnover going on there right now. New athletic director is, or a search for a new athletic director is going to happen here. Bernard Muir will be out at the end of the academic year. Who they bring in, I'm sure they're going to do an active coach situation. I shouldn't say that like I reported it. This is my guess here. My guess is that they're going to do an acting coach situation. Andrew Luck put it in the release, but I think that acting coach will probably be on the staff, if I had to guess. Just elevate an assistant, hire a coordinator at whatever that assistant's position is, and sort of keep. I think Troy Taylor was the offensive coordinator. Troy Luck was the Andrew Luck director of offense. Excuse me,
Troy Taylor, the Andrew Luck director of offense.
Yes, I don't know if there will be a situation where we have the Andrew Luck, the Andrew Luck director of offense, the head coach of Stanford. I don't know if Andrew Luck would be the acting head coach at Stanford. I don't think that would be the case. I think you elevate a coordinator and keep it pushing for this season. Again, it is March. And I look, Mike Bloomgren is an assistant coach right now with the Cleveland Browns. David Shaw is an assistant coach right now with the Detroit Lions. I don't know if either of those guys would want to come home.
Why would anyone want? The human mind is strange, and I don't know David Shaw, but why would he or Stanford be interested in that?
I don't know either. And I saw some of that yesterday. Some people were saying that on the Bird app, and I was like, "Hey, man, they were 3-9 for 3 years before David Shaw stepped away." Like this, it was not like, and we're gonna get into it because
for 2 years, but yeah, bad.
Sorry, yeah. You want to talk about sort of Stanford as a job or what have you, which we can do in a second, but man, the Christian McCaffrey Stanford's a long time ago, man.
A long time ago, and increasingly a long enough time ago that most of the recruits that you're dealing with might know he went there, but that's about it. Like, much less know who Andrew Luck really is, or Bryce Love, or Toby Gerhart, or Jim Harbaugh as a Stanford coach. That how many of today's kids even know that Jim Harbaugh worked at Stanford? I don't know. These are good questions.
No, it's a very good point.
I think the memory of that awesome run of Stanford teams is getting increasingly distant. And I do want to ask, Richard, is this even a good job anymore?
I think Stanford's one of the worst jobs in Power 4.
I think I agree, but let's go through the reasons why this might be the case. The ACC thing is not a crusher necessarily, but it's not good. It's not an asset that you play a lot of your games across the country and are no longer in a conference with USC, for example. The academic thing has not gotten any easier, right? It's still
they've done some, but it's not. No, it's not. Right. No. The answer to your question is no.
This has been a thing that's been kind of a popular talking point in college football circles for a long time, but I think especially maybe 10 years ago, David Shaw was talking about why Stanford wouldn't go to satellite camps. And he's like, I'm going to paraphrase, but why would we go there when there's only a couple kids in the whole place who could get into Stanford?
Which that's, yeah.
People were insulted, but it's hard.